the temperature pressure relief valve will come with a label on it that will say what the maintenance schedule is for that. And typically, it does vary with each valve manufacturer, but typically it will say that it needs to be mechanically tested once a year. And that literally means just opening and shutting the valve to make sure that the mechanism inside functions easily. And you also want to make sure, now normally this will have a discharge pipe on it, but you also want to make sure that you're going to get a lot of water out of that when that thing does function. So when you open that up, you're going to expect to get a rush of water. And that's going to tell you that that discharge pipe system doesn't have any restrictions in it, which is important, and that the valve operates freely should it need to, because it's an important safety device. And that's going to be on the label.
All right.
But the label's also going to say something else. It's going to say that depending on the manufacturer, every 3 to 5 years, this T&P valve is supposed to be removed, and a technician is supposed to visually inspect this to make sure there isn't any sediment or trash buildup in here. Yeah, so that we can ensure that this thing is going to work if it needs to. And that's really important if the house has had a problem with thermal expansion.
Right.
One of the dead giveaways that you have a thermal expansion problem is you have a dripping T&P.
Yes.
Okay? And so you see this a lot. I have a dripping T&P valve. That means really you've got a thermal expansion issue. We've seen a lot of these replaced. The second T&P, the third, the fourth, the fifth one, and none of these things work.
Bad batch of T&Ps.
Bad batch of T&Ps. And so the sixth one is not going to help either.
No,
I'll
it's not.
Go ahead and tell you that.
We know one thing is true, that it's not the
this.
T&P.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is possible that you could get one that has some trash under the seat. Usually you can just open it and shut it a couple of times and it'll flush that stuff out. But normally, if this T&P is dripping or weeping, as some people call it, just small amounts of water, if you look carefully, you're going to notice that that's really happening every time the burner comes on.
Right.
Or the elements. And if that T&P is dripping every time the burner comes on, that's a giveaway that it's a thermal expansion problem, and changing the T&P out is not going to fix the problem.
Right.
You need an expansion tank. But, so you get an expansion tank and you get a pressure reducing valve and you control the water pressure and you take care of your thermal expansion. However, if that's been happening for years, this T&P has dripped a couple of cups of water every time that water heater cycled, and you can easily get a sediment buildup inside this relief valve. So if you have to control the water pressure and you have to put a thermal expansion tank in, the third step you want to do is pull this T&P and check it inside to make sure it does not have a sediment buildup in it, because typically they will. It depends on the water hardness in your location, but in most places you would get a lot of sediment buildup in here if you're using the T&P as basically your relief valve, because this is a safety device.
Right.
And for thermal expansion, you're supposed to use a expansion tank and not the
Now, I mean, and like Henry said, you know, different manufacturers of those are going to, on the labels, going to tell you when you're supposed to actually take it out and look at it. But it's a good idea every year to open and close that, because that's something we do have in the manual.
Trusted and professional, Casey's Plumbing Service.